Hello, I'm Chris Podbert, and I wanted to do a bit more of just a reflective vlog. I've not done one of those for a while. Um, I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to go with this video, but I thought I'd go with it anyway. Probably just be exploring a multitude of different ideas I've had floating around my head, which are mostly related to my own sense of well-being, the global troubles I think the world is going through at the minute, relating that to history and just the terribleness of history in general. I might try and tie it in with some philosophy too, but I don't know. It's gonna mostly be just like I said. I'm gonna try and explore a few different ideas and yeah, talk about some personal stuff, but also talk about um, wider issues. Now, if that sounds vague, it's because it is. Anyway, so I think it's fair to say that the world is going through an unprecedented, difficult patch at the minute. Now, really, do I think it's any worse or better than previous generations or just history in general? I don't really think it is. I mean, so we're in the year is what 2024, right? So if we compare 2024 to the last century, um, we haven't had a world war on the scale of the First World War, right? Which is something. So that is something. Obviously, we've had another pandemic, but it wasn't I don't from my understanding it wasn't the same ferocity and savagery as the Spanish flu. So I mean if you want to compare it to fairly like the last 100 years ago, comparatively obviously we've got better technology, we've got better we should in theory we definitely do have better medical knowledge, which is just you'd expect that as just yeah, development across through time. But then history doesn't always take a linear course, I suppose, as well. So we tend to assume that, I think, especially in our modern age, that history will just tend, technology will continue to develop scientifically, will just progress forward. We assume that that linear line will continue. And that, more or less, in a lot of respects, it has already. We've got more devices. It never progresses in quite the way we think it will. Science fiction never gets it quite right. It sort of gets it half right. I mean, Neuromancer or William Gibson's a good example of that, I suppose, where the idea of cyberspace, but it's very different from how it's actually turned out is quite different from the actual reality of what it is today, right? But yeah, I mean, we do have problems, obviously. The environment. I mean, just in the UK, living in the UK is feeling more and more like living in an actual failed state. And I think in many major respects, it is really, to be honest. That's probably the end result of what a decade of austerity and various other factors, like obviously the cost of living has gone up from um, the various conflicts that are going on in the world, which are affecting globalization. We rely on global supply chains, and when they break down, we have big issues. Now, obviously, in terms of like globalization, um, I think especially if we want to live in the same way that we've all become accustomed to, we need globalization. Obviously, we need that. And I'm not naive. I think you've got to recognize that. I mean, the obvious example is something like people like Apple products or Apple phones, and a lot of those products are made in Chinese, manufacturing. basically, we always forget this in the West that all these luxury products we get, especially in our technology area, they relies on a lot of labour and fuel. Well, we don't. Well, we sort of know about it, but we all engage in it in some respect. This video will tangent around a lot. Just roll with it. But I don't know what else to pick up next. Actually, to be honest. So yeah, the world is in a lot of flux, chaos. Obviously, we've got AI looming on the horizon as well. So that's quite a big question. I mean, I've already done so many videos about that. I'm not going to dive into that too much. That will probably be one of the main technological drivers. Already is really. Has been for about a year now, year and a half, of where everything's going to be heading. As to whether we're going to get this automated. Well, just because I've been thinking about this recently, actually, I think AI either presents the biggest coming catastrophe, or it could also be the biggest liberatory, paradigm shifting technology we've had in generations, probably since personal computing. And I think it could still go either way, and it will probably end up being a combination of both, right? I think if so just from looking at it from a Marxist perspective, in some respects, and I mean in the traditional sense of doing an analysis, if the profits which were created by increasing automation of AI production with AI were democratized, that would probably radically alter the distribution of wealth just in the world, right? But obviously, there are investors who've invested a lot of money already in this technology. OpenAI has already been closed sourced, from what I understand. So, is that actually going to happen? Is looking increasingly, obviously, unlikely. Um, most of these AI, the companies that are already involved in producing LLM systems are big tech corporate entities, right? They're not going to suddenly start um, democratizing, unionizing, and putting workers' rights at the centers of their um, companies and the policies, right? Because they just always bottom line is profit. I mean, Google may have had "Don't be evil" in their charter, but they're not the best. I used to have a lot of respect for Google in some respects, actually, but not so much for probably about 10 or 15 years, to be honest. They did used to be more of a very focused on engineering, principles and everything else. But I don't know. I don't believe in them really at all. Anyway, that's that. So what I'm talking about here. So I said I'd talk about some personal stuff, and again, this is going to be just a bit of a rambling one. So I'm struggling with in relation to just how broken the UK feels at the minute, and it does really feel broken. It really does. I don't know how anybody else feels, but it just feels like everything's just going to bits. Like the public transport just works half the time. It's probably one of the most expensive public transport systems in Europe, easily, but terrible service. Strikes all the time, and then we've got NHS has been just crumbling basically for 2 years or something, probably longer. At the minute, I'm back at my parents. I've been trying to find a flat for the last 2 months. I've been in full time employment for the last 2 months as well. So I got a job working in further education. But even then, after securing a full time wage, full time hours, just doing what you're supposed to do, a fairly medium average wage salary for anybody in this country, I'm having so much trouble finding just even a flat. Like, we're not even joking, like a studio flat. A lot of the places start, and these places aren't like even that good. They're just like, but they'll start about 650 and average about 650 quid a month. An average price is about 850 per month, up to obviously thousands. And these are just for studio flats. But then there's also the thing I'm really coming up against in respect to that at the minute is I literally had a call back from an agent today who said that because I'd only been in my job a month and a half, the landlord would need 12 months rent up front immediately, which is basically £10,000 immediately up front. So that I mean, there'll be videos that go into much deeper analysis of that all that, but it's deeply frustrating because you sort of you get to the point where you struggle for a while. Like I struggled a lot last year, just trying to find work and trying to do anything. And obviously the government are now saying, "Oh, we need to get all disabled people into work," but then you actually do it, and it's like, okay, nothing really changes. I have a bit more money in my bank account, but I'm still barely able to scrape by living. So I think we are really going to have like in long time to get to this point. Sorry, but I do really think that it's going to have a profound effect on people's. It just feels like there's nothing to really strive for anymore. Like maybe part of this is also that I'm becoming middle aged. I'm 38, so I've got a few more years to go, and maybe I'm just feeling the aches and pains of just naturally aging. But it's I wake up every morning a lot of time and I think, what am I actually working towards? I don't have a family. I don't have a missus at the minute. I don't have children. So, to be honest, like those things aren't hugely important to me. It's not like I don't, like I think I'd like to meet someone and then maybe have a kid, but in terms of if it doesn't happen, it's not, devastating. But it's and I am actually, to be fair, I am finding quite a lot of meaning in my work because I started doing teaching, which is a lot to learn, a hell of a lot to learn actually. So I'm quite enjoying that challenge. It's just more I think I get into this existential funk sometimes when I start thinking about um, just thinking too much really. And when I was just in bed earlier, and I was thinking about, I go into these circular thought loops where I start thinking like, just about consciousness and why are we here, and just a lot of thoughts that have plagued philosophers who are much more clever and educated than me before. Except I don't really have any way of formulating answers to them, and for some reason that annoys me. Anyway, uh, yeah, there's just so much going on in the world, but then I think a lot of it comes also down to the fact that we live in an information saturated world, right? So, and I think the smartphone, the internet, it's just leaked into everything, and I'm addicted to all of the above. To be honest, I feel like my I still have a bit of a social life, but I mean I've always been very quiet and introverted, but I can do without having meet up with people all the time. But I find it much more difficult now to. I don't really have like a solid social group anymore. I still have friends. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like some hermit who doesn't have any friends. But maybe this is also I don't know, part of growing older as well. But I'm not like going out on the weekends. A lot of the time I don't even have the desire to. I think maybe just get that's a lack of this energy thing, right? I mean, I could still cane it if I wanted to. I'm pretty sure. Like if I could still do that, but then I don't know if I'd even enjoy it anymore. To be honest, like I'd go out raving or something on a special occasion. If there was like a really good, I don't know, I've been to a few gigs recently-ish, but doesn't dominate. Anyway, this is basically just a vlog where I'm now talking about I am becoming old. So I'll leave it there. I think this has been just a bit of a ramble, really. I think definitely life in the UK does feel pretty grim now. I mean, this time of year is bad enough, to be honest, with the weather and everything. Um, but yeah, it's definitely feeling like a lot worse than usual. Just because this country's depressing enough as it is, but when you factor in, the race riots recently as well, well, basically the racially motivated riots, there's a bunch of thugs just out there want to burn down mosques and everything, and it's just all that bullshit. Go to immigration centres and want to fucking smash them up. That makes you despair. I don't know what, a few months ago, and then just I don't know. It does make one despair in a lot of ways. Like this country is going down the toilet, really. And I feel that's everybody on the left and the right thinks that in a lot of respects. It's not like some partisan thing. I mean, Labour's being completely uninspiring to be honest. They're very not engaged with anything they're coming out of, to be honest. Yeah, and pensioner winter fuel cut that was just like, why do that? Anyway, I'm not going to marry on for too much longer. That's more like a diary for the month, but yeah, I might do these every now and again. It's just good to just get all these little niggly thoughts that gather dust in my head down in a recorded format of some kind. Um, I know most of it sounds like utter bollocks, but there you go. Right, I'm going to this diary here, I think, in a bit. If any of that was interesting, I don't know, let me know. Or if you disagree with anything I've said, or if you've got something interesting to contribute,